Ben Brown from Method Recruitment. Good afternoon. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Thank you very much for being involved in Recruitment Journeys, the podcast series.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, be good, mate. We're good. Where are you? We're obviously down here. We're both in lockdown, Victoria. Where are you with your very funky, kind of sophisticated shade behind you? Where are you?
I'm currently in my bedroom, which makes up my office at the moment. So down in Brighton in Victoria.
Okay, cool. How's your lockdown experience been so far? You coping or you pulling your hair out?
Um, yeah, I'm coping okay, mate, to be fair. It's been up and down, as you can imagine. Obviously, both of us been in recruitment. We've had our good months, we've had our bad months. I think the main thing for me is kind of balancing the work with the family life, mate. You know, spending the time with the family, the kids downstairs, and me upstairs trying to crack on.
It's mad, isn't it? It's such a unique set of scenarios that we find ourselves in. I'm here in like a bedroom, which I've turned into an office with my kind of posters behind me, but the kids are literally two rooms away, and at any moment they could barge through the door. I've got no control over it whatsoever. But this is
I've got more control because the TV's on downstairs, so I'm pretty confident they're not going to come through.
This is the world we've been thrust into. Right, mate. Well, look, thank you again for being involved in the podcast. To anybody who hasn't heard the podcast previously, it's called Recruitment Journeys. We're now in our second series, and as it says on the tin, it's all about the recruitment journeys of selected recruitment identities from the Australian recruitment industry, who we talk to about their journey, how they went from A to Z, and everything that's happened in between, in the hope to inspire, motivate, educate anybody who might look at your career path, your career journey, Ben, and go, yeah, that resonates. That's a kind of career path or a kind of avenue that I would like to follow, and they be inspired by your story. So you need to be as motivational and inspirational as you possibly can be today, Ben. If that's from the bedroom, if that's okay.
I'll try my best, mate.
Well, Ben, I've already given the viewers and the listeners a quick introduction as to who you are earlier in the podcast, but in your own words, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so thanks. Obviously, Ben Brown. I'm one of the co-founders of Method Recruitment. We've been going for the last nearly 5 years now. And before that, I worked for one of the big globals in Robert Walters when I first started my career as a grad about 12 odd years ago in Victoria.
Yeah, okay. 5 years. Has it flown by?
Yes, it has. It's amazing, really, how quickly it's gone. I've enjoyed pretty much every minute of it. We've evolved quite heavily over the 5 years, and we're kind of hitting the goals that we want to hit. But yeah, there's still a lot to do.
Perfect. You've got a few more grey hairs 5 years down the track than you did the first time I met you when you were back at Robert Walters.
I have, mate, yeah. I also got married about 8 years ago, and I had none then. So I think they stem from that day.
I was suggesting they're from your business, not your marriage, but that's another podcast. Well, mate, I categorize or title every podcast interview. And so for the purpose of this podcast, we do have to put you in a box. We are calling you, Ben, the recruiter who went from global to startup, because as you quite rightly say, you were working in a big business where presumably you had all of that cushioning and protection to a degree that a big business provides, and suddenly strip all that away, and it's you and your business partners doing it yourself. That's kind of key. That's what I'm keen to kind of explore. But before we get into it, I ask everybody the same question: how, and as importantly, why did you break into the wonderful world of recruitment?
How? Well, as we all did, we fall into this lovely industry.
Not all of us, but most of us.
Okay. You chose to be a rec-to-rec. I get it. So when I first moved to Australia, I met someone on pretty much the first day here. Me and him, a guy called Clint Robinson. We started doing door-to-door sales and selling electricity and gas in Victoria. So going from door to door in the residential sector. we became good mates. I went back to the UK, got an account management role, and then came back to Australia because I loved it here. At that time, he'd worked for a boutique recruitment company for about 18 months. And then he moved to Robert Walters for about 6 to 9 months, and he gave me the call. He said, I reckon you make a good recruiter. And went through the process with Walters. I think it was about 5 or 6 stages. Didn't really know what recruitment was at that moment in my life, and thought, why not? Let's give it a crack. And
wow. So, okay. So Robert Walters was the only recruitment business that you interviewed with?
Correct, yeah.
And you stayed there for 8 years?
Yep, yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, it's a good journey.
Now, so I'm not suggesting that that's unique, but I reckon that's quite rare. I mean, obviously, I work in recruitment. I spend my days talking to recruiters. You don't see that many recruiters who essentially get it right first time, and it must have been right because you stayed there for 8 years. But to only interview with one recruitment business and stay there for 8 years, do you feel pretty lucky that you basically landed on your feet at Walters? Or do you think you could have done that anywhere?
No, I think I was kind of at the point in my life where I was kind of searching for a career. I kind of went to uni. I studied geography. That was a fun experience over in the UK, but was I going to be in that industry for my whole career? Definitely not. I didn't really see a career in that area. So I'd kind of done a couple of sales gigs at that point, and I thought, I didn't really know what I was thinking, and I wanted to kind of build on my skills so far and continue or even start a career at that point. So I think Walters are a good business, solid, great brand, good structures, good career progression. I actually started my career in finance and moved across to technology after about 18 months, but it didn't come with it, it came with a lot of challenges in and around. There was times where I thought, this is not for me. Probably 18 months, 2 years down the track, I probably wasn't enjoying it as much as I first thought I did. Yeah. And I questioned why I was in recruitment. And I think a lot of people go through this phase in their career. My advice would be, to stick at it. You're going to have tough weeks. You're going to have tough months, even tough quarters. You've kind of got to get through it. And once you do, it becomes very, very rewarding. And I think that it's that reward that has kept me going over the years.
Yeah, yeah.
In many ways.
I would mirror that. I think a lot of people, certainly in the early years, true for you and certainly true for me, until you find your groove, until you find your place, your home, until you find your niche, your specialism, what you're good at, it's never going to go well because it's a tough job. You kind of need all those stars to align. I still remember, so I started out in recruitment 20 plus years ago, and I remember going to a payphone because we didn't have mobile phones then, in my first kind of month in recruitment at the S3 group, and calling my then girlfriend from the payphone on my lunch break, saying, "I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I can't do this recruitment thing. It's so hard. I have to call people who don't know me and ask them for their business. It's called cold calling. I hate it." And until you find the place where you're able to do that, where you're comfortable doing that, then the penny finally drops. But I digress.
And why I kind of enjoyed it, I think, over the 8 years was my role did change, the job did change, and I think that's great for anyone who's looking to kind of build their career. If you can make your role interesting on a regular basis, and not, even though recruitment's repetitive, I went from consultant in finance to then in IT. That was a change for me. I then went to senior consultant, took on more responsibility, management, associate director, etc. Yeah. For me, that was a kind of motivating factor. And also seeing people evolve. I was evolving, but I enjoy seeing people evolve and develop in their own careers as well. And that's, I think a lot of people in recruitment, they say it's rewarding, and they normally only talk about one thing, and that reward is normally money. But for me, that was the initial phase of why I liked recruitment. Obviously, the kind of money and the satisfaction and the reward of doing a good job for my clients and candidates. But the long-term thing for me is actually now seeing people develop, evolve, helping them do that, and looking at someone on kind of day one in recruitment to kind of year one, year two, year three, so many success stories that I can kind of think of, and that's satisfying for me at this moment in my career.
Okay, all right, mate. All right, so back to Walters. You did a fine stint of 8 years. At what point in that 8-year tenure did you start having the thought that so many recruitment entrepreneurs have? You have that inner conversation. You think, right, do you know what? I could do this myself. Yeah. When did that kind of scratch start itching?
To be fair, it wasn't until towards the end. It may have been 7.5 years into the 8-year journey, something like that.
So you're a company man almost to the end.
I pretty much was, yeah. So I kind of enjoyed the environment. I enjoyed the people I worked with. We had a good team. We were pretty successful. And then I just started, I think you get to a certain point and level in those types of organisations, and you kind of hit a few frustrations. Maybe other people that they've hired across the business in other divisions, or things that you just can't change, bonus structures as an example, but maybe back office systems, I was kind of getting more involved in that, but I couldn't really make the difference, and I couldn't make that change in a larger business. And I think I kind of got to that point. I thought, well, look, if I can't make the difference here, and maybe they don't value what I think, then I either go to another business or I start my own. Yeah. And that's kind of where it grew. And at the time, Greg was heading up the finance team from a commercial perspective over there. And
this is Greg, you're one of your co-founders.
Yeah. We started chatting, and we were pretty much aligned from kind of where our frustrations came from. And that's kind of when he introduced us to Steve, who we knew, or Greg knew at the time. He was going through a similar feelings, that kind of ambition, and kind of wanted to start his own thing. And we got together, and I suppose the rest is history post that point.
So it's obviously you were working with Greg, but so how did Steve McCourt come into it? Because Steve was working at Ambition. So Greg had previously worked at Ambition, didn't he? So there's the connection. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah. So how did you feel about, I've always been curious because most business partnerships, and I have thought about this when I think about Method over the years, most business partnerships are with people that you know. Not all, but most. And you knew Greg knew you, but you didn't know Steve. How did you have the confidence that this was going to be a business relationship that would work?
Well, I think the first, Greg I knew, but I didn't know him probably at the level of a kind of business partnership level, if that makes sense. So he was more of a colleague at Walters. I liked his style, I liked his energy. I liked the way he kind of managed his team, and I thought it's kind of quite different to the way I did things, but I think that's beneficial in a business relationship. So, and look, we were good friends as well, so we thought that would work. Steve was always a competitor. Myself and him always used to compete quite heavily in the tech space, especially in financial services around the kind of banks. We always used to compete. So I knew he was a pretty good operator. I liked his style. Again, he's a little bit different to me. He's a bit more direct in his approach, but extremely successful in kind of what he does. And I think those kind of, even though we probably didn't realise at the time when we come together, but we actually operate quite differently. And the reason that I feel that kind of works well is we're not really stepping on each other's toes when it comes to kind of running Method. We all trust each other to do the things that need to get done to run a good business. And that kind of gelling of the three founding directors. Obviously we've got Martha now in Sydney, but the kind of gelling of that, I think it's actually set us up for better success over the years, because there's a lot of recruitment owners that they all try and do the same thing. And I find in that type of model, it just doesn't work as well.
So what if you are all adopting these different roles and responsibilities within the business? in a nutshell, what do each of you do?
So Greg's very much around the kind of the marketing, the brand build, the kind of cultural aspects, the training development, that side of things.
Yeah.
Steve's very much the kind of the sales, the development, the kind of improvement, really kind of setting the example in the office on how to be a top performer in the market. And then I'm more kind of finance, operations. I've slightly bigger teams, so I kind of do a lot more kind of one-on-ones. And, I've got probably about 14, 15 reports now. Steve has about 4 or 5, and then Greg has about 4 or 5 as well. So I do definitely more of the kind of operations side of running the business.
Yeah, okay. So across Melbourne and Sydney, is the business now, between 25 and 30 people?
Yeah, so we're about 30 all up, coming up to 30. We've just made a few hires. Sydney's a couple of people, hopefully soon to be 3.
Yeah.
Melbourne, from a kind of front office sales perspective, we're about 18, 19 people. Got 3 back office, so finance, office management, and we have a learning development manager in-house. Yeah. And then we've got 3 people over in Cebu in the Philippines that run all of our administration and RM operations. Okay. So coming up to about 30 people.
Yeah. Okay. All right, mate. Well, let's get to the kind of the juicy stuff, which is the concept of going from a global business to a startup, because there are plenty of people who have done it successfully. You think of the guys from 4 Quarters who all came from Robert Half, the guys from 6 Degrees who all came from Michael Page, the guys from Sharp & Carter who all came from Michael Page. There's plenty of examples of how it's done successfully. But it could be argued that if you come in, and I'm keen to get your view on it, it could be argued that if you're coming from a big business, that big business gives you all kinds of levels of safety and security and kind of padding. Essentially, everything's done for you. You've got a massive brand behind you. I'm not suggesting it's an easy ride within a big business, but it's certainly easier, I would have thought, billing within Robert Walters than it would be for ABC Consulting based in St Kilda, right? It has to be.
Yeah.
So were you ever worried that you weren't prepared or didn't have the right skill set, not through any fault of your own, just because as a product of your environment, that you were going to have to go and build a business from scratch coming from a global business? Did that ever concern you?
I think so. It definitely did, because we were pretty much 3 recruiters. Even though we managed teams, our background was recruitment. I probably did the most operational stuff at Walters, but you're limited to kind of what you can do and what you can't do. You're pretty much given the guidelines and you've got to follow those guidelines. So yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously the business side, we'd never run a business. None of us had run a business before. I think Steve had an online au pair matching business that he ran with his wife. But apart from that, it was all new to us. We were worried about that. We were worried about having no brand, because they do drill it into you. They do, all of them, Hayes, the Pages, whoever, they all kind of get you believing that you're successful because of the brand. So when
do they brainwash you or try to?
Yeah, I suppose so, to a certain degree, because and don't get me wrong, mate. Those brands are powerful.
Yeah,
they do. They do mean that maybe a 500-600K biller in our business would be maybe doing 800-900 in those bigger brands. But you've got all the other challenges that are associated to those businesses, and obviously our commission structure and same with all the boutiques that's set up that you can make more money and you can perform better in our environment, but you might not bill as much. But that's definitely a concern, and I think that kind of concern probably eradicated itself when we made our first placement. That was it. It wasn't a concern for too long, to be honest. We're like, right, we can do this. All of us making a placement, once we've all, and I'd been hands off for a couple of years or so at Walters, so I was kind of getting back into it. But as soon as we'd done that, we were like, this is it. We can do this now. And fully committed. We were fully committed from the get-go, but that kind of cemented that actually the brand doesn't matter. We just got to follow the process that we've been doing our whole career, and we're all in it together at the end of the day.
So
A nice COVID saying there.
Yeah, nice. So how did it feel in those early months when you were like, formatting your own CVs, chasing your own invoices, making your own tea?
Yeah. Oh, we made our own tea at Walters. It's actually funny you bring up the format and a CV. We didn't do it for too long, mate, to be fair, because we just weren't any good at it. So we actually engaged a company over in Cebu in the Philippines to help us do that, pretty much from kind of month 1 or 2. Yeah. I always remember there was one time where Steve was trying to format a CV for a client. He was trying to convert a PDF to a Word. And I tried to do it, then Greg was getting involved. Before we know it, we're 3 hours, 3 hours and 3 directors down the track, and the CV still looks terrible. It would have been better for us to send the CV as standard. But I think that was the kind of, the kind of last resort where we were like, right, let's just get someone to help us here. And she's still with us today. One of probably our first employee over in the Cebu in the Philippines, and she's been a godsend. To our business,
because she knows how to turn a PDF document into a Word document,
and a lot more. She's fantastic, and I think we, as a business, some businesses undervalue those types of resources. We value them highly. They're so important for not only us as directors, but our consultants. There's not many recruitment consultants that I've met in my life that are really good at admin. So having a good support team overseas has been a great investment for us as an organisation.
So what did you? I mean, obviously, we're in agreement that businesses like Michael Page and Walters and Robert Half, they're obviously very, very good at many things. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had the level of success that they've had for many, many years. So what good things did you pull out of your time at Walters and implement a method?
I mean, you've got to identify the good things, and there are plenty of them. But I think also, as part of our start in the business, it was identifying the things that frustrated us and the things that are not so good with those organisations. The good things that we specifically took for our business was the kind of career structure. And there's a real gap, or there was a real gap, and I think there still is in the kind of boutique market in and around organisations creating career development at the boutique level for their consultants. And that might not be, okay, one day you're going to be a director, but actually evolving yourself on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis, making sure you're always improving, you're always growing, you're always developing. I think a lot of boutiques kind of throw you on your desk, say, there it is, get on with it. We wanted to kind of create a model where, yes, obviously you've got your desk, you're going to evolve it, you're going to develop it, but we see that there's definitely a market there for kind of career development, and we do take that fairly seriously. And obviously having Jess, who's our internal development consultant in-house, has helped us basically improve that over the last kind of couple of years. And I think that was one of the kind of big factors that I took away. I think structure and process. I mean, we can never do it as well as a big global. They have teams that are evolving this all the time. But I suppose taking some of that and making sure that we're kind of implementing that in the right way. So not just doing numbers for the sake of it. Actually going, okay, well, how are we adding value? What are the strengths of our consultants? And adapting their role around that, rather than saying, hey, here's the rule. The rule book is you do this much activity and you're going to get these results. We kind of hit that on the head and say, how about you add value, you deliver quality service, you implement the right behaviours yourself, and kind of once you can do that, you will become a successful consultant. Whereas normally it's the other way around, if that makes sense. And then the things that I personally feel that those bigger businesses aren't doing so well at is the corporatization of recruitment, making it more of a commodity-based industry. And I think that kind of stems from those businesses, most of them in this day and age are run by accountants or CFOs, the numbers people. They're all looking for improvements in margins, slightly higher fees, improved activity. That's what they're looking for. Our methodology is more about our people and about improving our people rather than the numbers driving the business. The actual people drive the business. So I suppose the reverse of the numbers piece. The numbers are great, and we can talk about them all day, but our business is about people. If we don't have good people, we're not going to be a business. So actually having a mindset in and around that, and there's plenty of things that we do as an organisation to try and evolve that, and it's forever evolving.
Do you think the bigger businesses are changing though? Do you think they are softening a bit and changing the way they approach business? I mean, I've seen a few examples of things happen that have taken me by surprise of bigger businesses, and you think, oh my God, I didn't know they'd do that, or I didn't think they'd be open to that idea, but they seem to be.
Oh, for sure they're softening. If you're talking about flexible working, I mean, I think every business under the sun is had to evolve, has had to develop. I mean, especially obviously in these times, you have to do it. But what is the kind of evolution of that when organisations do go back to the office? How do they evolve from that? They definitely are changing. Can they be as nimble and as flexible as us? Definitely not. We're smaller. They're larger. They have to treat their staff fairly, and normally the way they do that is they create policies and practices and frameworks that people have to abide by. If not, if you've got a graduate coming in with 6 months work experience and you give them the same flexibility as someone with 8 years experience, they're probably going to treat it quite differently. So it's we can afford to be a bit more flexible because the people we hire do have experience. It's more of an adult environment, so you can actually give them a little bit more leeway when leading them, when managing them, and they don't take advantage of that.
So when you think about the people that you want to bring into Method to help you build this business, because of thinking about your background and Greg's background and Steve's background, Steve came from Ambition, which was not a small business in its day. Would you always prefer to get a recruiter from a boutique, or would you prefer to get a recruiter from a global?
I'm not fussed, and the reason I say that, mate, is because it's dependent on the person and the individual. We hire very much around someone's behaviours, and they might not even have any recruitment experience. Some of our best hires since we started the business are people with no recruitment experience, and it's because they've got the right behaviours. So I definitely don't pigeonhole ourselves in and around that. I think there's some great success stories that have come from larger corporates, but there's also some people that we've hired that have come from that background that haven't been successful. And normally it comes down to their behaviours and how they hold themselves in the market and their care factor around their role, rather than they've got all this experience under the sun. And I've met a lot of recruiters in my time that have a very short-term lens on things. That just doesn't work in our business. It's definitely kind of more medium to long term. If I can kind of get a feeling that someone's in recruitment for their career and they want to evolve and they want to learn and develop, and they back that up with what they say they do. That's what I'm about. It's not about, okay, you've got X amount of years and you've worked for this business or that business. I don't think it really matters. Okay.
All right, well, look, going back to the concept and the purpose of the podcast, which is all about educating and inspiring people. If there's somebody listening to this podcast who's sitting in a Hayes or a Walters or a Randstad and thinking about starting their own business, literally from the kitchen table, what advice would you give them?
What, in the current climate?
Well, current climate, don't do it. No, actually, sorry, what am I talking about? Right, you raise an interesting point. So many businesses, not so many, but a lot of businesses are starting up now, right? In the middle of COVID. What's your view on that? Good time or bad time to start a business?
I don't know. I think it's probably a good time to start, to be fair. You know, if you've got some savings behind you. My biggest advice would be understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
I think the interest of doing it and the appetite to do it always looks great. It looks fantastic. Oh yeah, run my own business. That sounds fantastic, right?
Yeah.
In reality, is it like that? Probably not. You know, there's a hell of a lot of hard work up front that needs to be done to get the business off the ground. But if you understand why, and it might be lifestyle, or it might be I want to grow a nice boutique business with 20, 25 people, and I want to make my own decisions. That's perfectly fine. But if you don't understand that why, and you just do it because you think you're going to earn more money doing it for yourself, personally, I would never have done it on my own. And I think, and I've got friends who have, and I see that they're quite lonely, and that's fine. You know, people want to do it on their own and build and kind of get on with it, but that's not for me. So you need to understand that why piece first. And if you're a very social and interactive person and you enjoy the life and the social side of a big business, I think going in a business with one or two people without the view that you're going to grow it is probably the wrong thing to do. If you're doing it to grow and evolve and kind of develop yourself and build a successful business, my advice would be do it with people you know, people that you trust, people that are tried and tested in the market.
What was your why?
I think it came from the frustrations, mate. I really do. You know, the frustrations of a large business. I wanted to make my own decisions.
Yeah.
I wanted to be successful and grow my own business. I didn't really want to be the MD of Melbourne. That was the next phase for me at Walters, and I just didn't appeal to me. If I'm going to do that, and I'm going to be an MD of a business, it might as well be my own business. And you know, not saying it's a bad role. I mean, it's a great role. You get paid very, very well for it, but at the same time, you're not making your own calls. You really are subject to what London are doing and what your boss is doing and their bosses are doing, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, I just wanted a bit more freedom. Yes, we wanted to grow it. Did we think we were going to grow it to the current levels? I don't think we thought that in the first 4 or 5 years. I think we're definitely ahead. We don't want to be the kind of next, I always say Sharp and Carter in this phase, in the sense that we don't want to be 50 or 60 or 70 people. Yeah. I think we want to keep it small, boutique, high quality, high service, and keep it to a kind of management level where you can get the best out of people. I think you can kind of go the next phase, and then you do become the next bigger business in Victoria. And I don't want to be the next Walters in Victoria and have 50 consultants running around. I just feel that the service offering kind of gets diluted at that level.
And how have you guys, how have Method coped with COVID? How are you going? I think generally speaking, the industry, I did a survey recently, and I think the industry, I can't remember the exact number, but I think 89%, forgive me if I've got that wrong, but I think 70 or 80% of businesses are not doing as bad as they thought they would. Does that apply to you guys?
Oh, mate, it's been up and down. Don't get me wrong. When COVID hit, it was pretty bad for a couple of months. June was pretty good. Then we had the second lockdown, which kind of hit us again. Not as hard as the first. And now, kind of September, we've been pretty strong. A strong set of results for September, and the pipeline going in October looks good. So I don't want to kind of get ahead, but the sentiment in the business is pretty positive, and I think that's kind of stemmed from most of our staff. We've tried to keep them engaged. We've tried to keep it as fresh as we possibly can, mindful of people being at home and mindful of kind of what's going on out there, so we can kind of experience the upturn with a positive workforce. I think that's you don't want to kind of get ahead, and I have good days, I have bad days. You know, I'm normal, just like anyone else. And I say that to the staff. You know, like today was not today, but there's been days that have been kind of shocking, and I felt like not working. You know, and I think everyone experienced that at the end of the day. And I know my staff kind of go through the same thing. So I think it's been kind of realistic on things. Am I positive in the next 6 months? I think there's definitely market share to be had. Hopefully, you know, off the back of many businesses making quite rash decisions as part of COVID, we kind of have we've been fairly mindful and measured in our approach, and hopefully that, you know, touch wood, that kind of sets us up going into next year. I think if we can kind of tick off this year, go into next year with the staff we've got, I think we've got a very strong team to kind of set us all up for success next year.
Yeah, I think you guys, I think Method have really used this crisis as an opportunity to, you know, to not only consolidate but to strengthen. And I think quite a few businesses have seen COVID as an opportunity to hire and prepare for 2021. A lot of businesses just want to survive. I think you've tried to, you know, grow sensibly a little bit. And I hope that strategy pays off for you. I'm sure it will. And then post-COVID, if you can think that far ahead, and I know not many of us are thinking that far ahead, but what's the big picture for Method Recruitment? Yeah,
big picture at the moment is really consolidate, get the best out of our people in Melbourne. Yes, we've hired a few people, but they've been strategic hires in desks that have been, I suppose, available for a period of time. So just get the best out of that team there, and evolve the organisation. So we've got a few people coming through, you know, consultant to senior consultant, maybe even management over the next kind of 12 or 18 months. It'd be great over the next 18 months to get a solid management structure in place within the organisation, and kind of really work with the staff that we've got to do that. We won't be hiring any externals in to kind of do that. And then Sydney is a big focus. You know, a couple of people there at the moment, soon to be 3, hopefully. You know, really evolving that organisation, and kind of getting it to the next step. And you know, it's probably a little bit easier in Melbourne, where we had 3 directors. To get it to 6, it wasn't as challenging. We've got 1 director there, so again, being a bit more strategic with who we hire. We've probably, you know, hired the wrong type of people in Sydney previously. We've kind of had the mindset that, you know, what we've done in Melbourne, we can do in Sydney. That hasn't worked out in our favour as such, because it is a different type of business at the end of the day. But, you know, working hard to try and get that, you know, to the next phase, you know, and that's 5-6 people. And then from there, hopefully we can get it to kind of 12 and then 15 and 20, and get it very similar to Sydney. I think Melbourne and Sydney will stay at about that level, you know, 20, 25 people, something like that. And we may look at other areas potentially in the long-term future. But that's, let's see how the next 18 months or so go first.
Let's get through COVID.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, I can't believe it's only 5 years. I feel like Method have been around for longer than that, but you've been certainly from my selfish rec-to-rec perspective, a welcome addition to the recruitment landscape, mate. And it looks like you're getting through COVID as a business as well as, if not better than, a lot of other recruitment businesses out there. So you're obviously doing the right thing, mate. So everything that you learned at Robert Walters, some of it obviously sunk in.
Some of it, yeah. And I even blow dried my hair, mate, for today. So there you go. I know you had a COVID haircut, yeah. Mate, it's all over the shot. Look how long it is.
Blow dried your hair. That's right. Well, I shaved mine off. Which
yeah, no. I wasn't going to take that step. You're a lot braver than I am.
I had no choice. I honestly felt like I had no choice. It was getting wild, and I ordered a beanie. Because I thought I'm just going to wear a beanie for the next 6 months. But stupidly, I ordered it from Denmark about 4 months ago. It hasn't even arrived yet.
I can't believe I just admitted that on a podcast, but there you go.
Yeah, and I can promise you I will not be editing that out.
Nice one, mate. And thanks for all your work over the years as well.
Mate, pleasure. Mate, thank you for being involved. Good luck getting through the next couple of months, and I'm sure we'll speak soon.
Cheers. Take care.
Hey, Ben. All the best.
Bye.